Welcome back to another video. Today I want to talk about growing peas. So it's about that time of year again where the weather is beginning to warm up, the soil and snow is beginning to thaw, and it's time to get out there and start planting the early season crops. Crops like certain types of brassicas, lettuces, and today specifically what I want to talk about is peas. So far over the years of gardening, my favorite variety has been the green arrow pea. This variety has proven to be pretty tolerant of colder conditions, especially here in Zone 6A, where usually the planting time is around March 17th. I've sown these plants as early as March 5th or March 9th, like a full week or two before the traditional time of planting some of these early season crops might be in this area. And I'm not saying that you can't have the same or similar or better success with other varieties, but the green arrow pea has definitely done well for me around here. Peas are also legumes, right? So they are in the bean family. They are a leguminous crop, so they can also form symbiotic relationships with various types of bacteria and fungi in the soil that help to fix nitrogen in the soil to make it available for these leguminous crops, but also for maybe other plants in the area or plants that may be in the next phase of the crop rotation. So these plants can be useful companion plants when planting with other plants, maybe especially brassicas, which can be a nitrogen hungry type of crop. So plants like turnips, cabbage, mustard, kale, and plants like that might make good companions for peas and legumes in general. So of course there are different varieties of peas. You can get snow peas, there are shelling peas, there are snap peas. So the green arrow variety is actually a shelling pea. So what you would do is you would plant the seeds, they would grow, and they would produce these pods, and when they're still green, and when these pods have filled but they're still green, then you would go in and harvest them, and then take off the shells and harvest the immature seeds. So those can be eaten fresh, you can eat them raw, you can cook them up into foods. And what I like to do is I just like to put them straight into jars and freeze them for over the winter time. To me, they are such a superior tasting food to what you can find in the grocery store. They just have at least 2 to 3 times more flavor than anything you can really buy. So when it comes to planting peas, it can be a little tricky because these plants are basically, as per my experience, they are early succession plants. And from what I've observed is if you plant them in freshly tilled soil or some type of very loose, relatively aerated soil, they do very well and they thrive. However, if there's any meaningful amount of compaction in there and the soil has gone anaerobic, these plants can be very sensitive to that, and the plants will just kind of fizzle out and you won't get much of a harvest, and the plants will be really small and they'll die back really early, prematurely. So it is possible that peas might be descended from a common ancestor that was a very early succession type of species, type of plant, right? Where if there was any type of immediate disturbance in the landscape, whether it be a landslide or a tree falling over and exposing an area of ground or tillage, that plant would be one of the first to come in and cover the earth, right? And kind of protect it from the sun and to help rehabilitate that soil, right? To help fix that nitrogen into that soil. So if you want to grow these plants well and successfully, it's important to keep that in mind. So initially, when I was gardening, right after I had tilled the soil, I would then use one of these. I made it myself, and so essentially this has 3 prongs. Originally I made it to have 5 prongs, and what I do is I just press it down into the soil, the freshly tilled soil, and it would make a bunch of holes, and I would just do that along the row, and then I would plant the pea seeds in those little holes and then cover them up. That worked out well, but in gardening where I've been moving away from using tilling, and as the soil continues to kind of rehabilitate itself, I found that using one of these really had a very powerful impact on compacting the soil right around the seeds. And it got kind of hard on my hands trying to, do this repetitively down each row. So what I use now is the pointy end of a pickaxe to just make a shallow furrow in the soil, and that seems to have a less stressful impact, and it seems to be a little bit more effective in these types of scenarios. So as some additional notes, in these beds where I've been planting these green arrow peas, I will also be planting some turnip plants, or turnip seeds, in there as well. The two plants may do well together as companion plants because the turnips can help to break up soil compaction a little bit, and then the peas can help to facilitate the fixation of nitrogen into the soil. Now, in terms of logistics, when I plant these peas, I generally try to make sure I'm planting them in garden beds that are about 2 feet wide, and I used to put 5 rows of peas in these 2-foot wide beds, but that was before I started planting turnips and other companion plants in there as well. So what I do now is I do 3 rows of peas, right, 1 down each side of the perimeter and then 1 down the middle, and then in between those 3 rows I do a row of turnips. So I have 2 rows of turnips in between those 3 rows of peas. Alright, so I hope you enjoyed this video on planting peas. Hope you got something from it. I look forward to seeing you in a future video. Take care. And then the peas can help facilitate the fixation, and then the peas can help facilitate the fixation of nitrogen into the soil. And then the peas can help to facilitate the fixation of nitrogen into the soil.